Air Chief Marshal A.P. Singh, AVM Gulani, DG Caps, former Chiefs of Air Staff, scholar warriors, participants of this vast course, foreign dignitaries, foreign DAs over here, officers, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to be here. This is the, I think, second or third vast course I'm attending. This is the fourth one, but I've been here now for at least 2 occasions. And I must actually compliment Air Chief Marshal Chaudhary for having conceptualized this particular course. I think it's very important to develop this particular trait, which he did mention in his remarks also. And I must also compliment the graduating officers, 12 of them, on successful completion of this particular course. I've been asked to speak about a scholar warrior. So let me begin by actually defining what I believe is a scholar warrior, and I'll read it out. A scholar warrior is a military professional who combines intellectual depth with combat skills. This individual possesses both strong academic knowledge and practical military expertise, enabling them to analyze complex situations, strategize effectively, and adapt to diverse challenges in a dynamic security environment. If this was the definition of a scholar warrior, this idea of being a scholar warrior existed, at least was prevalent in the Indian context from ancient times, if you see. We've heard of Shastra and Shastra. They've all taken together as per Indians. Shastra was nothing but knowledge of weapon systems, and Shastra was knowledge about strategy and wisdom. So both Shastra और Shastra दोनों जो थे विद्यमान थे हिंदुस्तान में पहले से ही. So this has been part of our education system and small culture. In ancient times, whenever this princes of royal families, etc., they were sent to gurukuls, actually schools for military education. It was there they were taught about Shastra also and Shastra also. That is part of the system, and we have these examples of Kauravas and Pandavas in their formative years being trained by Guru Dronacharya in the gurukuls. And probably today, if we have a look at what we have as military schools or Sainik schools, they are something what gurukuls used to be in ancient times, where this kind of education was being imparted. Let's look at Mahabharata, the global war of ancient times, we could say. And once again, the winning and unbeatable combination of war was provided by the duo of Krishna and Arjuna. Arjuna, as you all know, was the legendary. He was the greatest warrior of his old times, and his bravery and skills were unmatched in warfare. And Krishna, he was the embodiment of knowledge, wisdom, and he was a master of strategy and statecraft. And this was a combination of these two which made the Pandavas win the Mahabharata. The winning combination of Shastra and Shastra is found once again in Indian history in form of Chanakya and Chandragupta. Chandragupta, the founder of Mauryan dynasty, was the first emperor to unify most of what is India under a single administration. Chanakya, or Pandit Vishnugupta, was known for his key role in mentoring Chandragupta. His Arthashastra, his treatise on remaining the most enduring testament to the power of integrated statecraft, economic policy, and military strategy. Chanakya and Chandragupta together were able to keep the Greeks out and India united. We all know this. In the West also, if you look at Alexander, his most famous, he was the most famous journalist you find, and he was a warrior, and he was actually tutored by Aristotle. Let's come on to this ancient times, to about medieval times, and most of this scholarly writings on war and warfare in the medieval times have been dominated by the West. It's not because of anything else. I think they have been under prolonged periods of warfare. So whether it is 100 years war, 30 years war, French Revolution, or the Napoleonic Wars. You may have seen the Napoleon Bonaparte, or just made a mention, was one of the most successful military commanders of these particular times. He was a brilliant strategist and a commander. Sometimes I wonder, was he a scholar? He had a team of staff officers which used to actually assist him in the scholarly kind of duties. And his scholarly works, if you say, are limited to issuing of special Part 1 orders, etc., before the start of a campaign or appreciation after the campaign. So maybe the Russian campaign was disastrous. Maybe this particular aspect of scholarly side was missing. During this particular time, we also noticed the emergence of a gap between scholars and warriors, both becoming kind of separate skill sets. Military scholars like Machiavelli, Clausewitz, Jomini, Adolphus became famous as actually for their scholarly writings, and when they were divorced from what military journals were. In the same period, we produced excellent military practitioners of the same strategy, which people wrote, like Napoleon, Frederick the Great, Lord Wellesley. Lord Wellesley, I hope you people know, is famous not only for the Battle of Waterloo, but also for Battle of Versailles, Bismarck, etc. So we see this kind of a trend continuing during World War I and World War II, where, you know, there were captains like, Basil Littleheart, captain who actually taught journals, people like Mahan, Dohe, which I think the air chief follows very, very closely. And they were all strategic analysts in their own manner, thinkers, but they were not actually practitioners of warfare. They were different from famous and successful journals like Montgomery, Rommel, who actually were not scholars. And their writings, they were confined to memories and battle experiences. There have been some exceptions though, one notable one being the General Patton. But if we look at modern warfare today, we are seeing an unprecedented pace driven by a relentless march of technology, turbulent geopolitical shifts happening, battlefields are no longer linear fronts, but transparent, swift, intelligent, and multi-domain arenas. We now stand at the cusp of what normally I've been calling as a third revolution in military affairs, which is a kind, the term which I've called is convergence kind of warfare, which is converging, kinetic with non-kinetic, first and second generation with the third generation of warfare. It's converging, tactical, operational, and strategic kind of domains. It is fusing hybrid tactics and all three types of domains, land, sea, air, with new kinds of domain of cyberspace and cognitive warfare. Tactics now bleed seamlessly into operational art and strategy in real time. A warrior actually today needs to master all the three levels of warfare, that's the tactical, operational, and strategic level in all domains which I just mentioned. Only a warrior with superhuman capabilities can decide this complex mosaic that may connect a drone strike to a cyber breach, a narrative war to an orbital disruption that will have and still have a moral courage to lead men through fog and fire. Let's look at hybrid wars. Future wars will still demand hybrid warriors who can fight on borders, maneuver in deserts, plan counterinsurgency operations in dense urban jungles, neutralize drones, decode cyber intrusions, and wage influence operations. Today, on one end, we will require kind of scholar warriors who also practice the science of strategy and tactics, but also we will require tech warriors. Tech warriors will be able to harness cutting-edge technologies, cyber power, artificial intelligence, and data-centric architecture. We'll also require info warriors. Info warriors who will shape narratives, counter disinformation, and dominate the invisible battle space of perception. In the emerging landscape of war, a soldier will have to be all three together. That's a tech warrior, info warrior, and a scholar warrior. Even roles of scholars actually is becoming complex nowadays. In earlier days, I've given you couple of examples. I said about Clausewitz, I've talked about Germany, Moltke, etc. There were individual human beings actually which did this scholarly work. But if you look at the landscape today, it's a collection of people which actually are doing that scholarly work. So you have think tanks like Rand, Carnegie, we have CAPS over here. So they're replacing individuals because this particular aspect is also getting complex. And if you have seen today, So I'll be talking about a scholar warrior kind of a concept which we should have, but most of the books today presented by the participants of this course largely actually dwell towards scholarly part and less towards warfare part. There has to be a fair amount of balance between your scholarly abilities and your warrior kind of abilities. And why I should be talking about it, because this all affects, this complex environment affects national security in a major manner. And national security, as I've been trying to define it, is kind of three kind of a concentric circles, in which the outermost layer defines how you secure your country, which will probably define a national security strategy, about which there was a question also. The middle layer would be how you defend your country. That's entirely different gamut, but it would be a subset of how you secure a country, and the center or the core of it would be something to do with military preparedness of a nation, about which we all are, as practitioners, regularly follow. But we fail to actually, as people in uniform, try to understand what it goes about, how to defend your country and how to secure our country. So as we grow in service, I think there is a need for us to understand this larger dimension of defense of a country and security of a country. So, that's again coming back to the same point, that an officer today needs to be much more well-read so that he can contribute to this particular aspect of securing a nation. As was said earlier, that there are no runners-up in war, and this will be giving examples of Operation Sandur, which still continues. Our preparedness level has to be very high. It's 24/7, 365 days. We are living in that kind of an environment, and it's only scholar warriors that can ensure this readiness by thinking differently, connecting the dots across this complete kind of an spectrum. I've actually given you a number of examples. Initially, when we said that, we thought that the scholar warrior should be a single gentleman actually. It should, both the scholarly qualities and the warrior qualities should lie in one domain. But right from ancient times, we have found that both are complex, and that's why there was Arjun and there was Krishna, and there was two people actually. And throughout history, we've seen two people. So how are we saying that this particular thing should reside in one particular gentleman over here? My particular view is that one genius or one successful general will never make you win a war actually. So you don't require one Manekshaw or one Napoleon to make you win a war. You require actually hundreds of them. So that genius should reside in all of us and not in one gentleman. I think that's the call of the day that we should take, that this ability to be a scholar warrior, the ability to be a tech warrior, ability to be an info warrior, in some measure or the other, should reside in all ranks of the armed forces. That is going to make us successful. So there is no escape from learning, both about Shastra and Shastra. I think that goes without saying, and that's one of the big takeaways from this particular course. And there's much quotes actually given by Chief Marshal Chaudhary, and I can only end by saying two quotes, one from English, that the more you learn or more you know, the more you realize that how little actually you know. And something like that I think Chaudhary was saying when he said, okay, the further you get towards knowledge, the knowledge goes further away from you. And there's of course a Sanskrit quote in Rig Veda which says that Ano Bhadra Kartava Yantu Vishvata. That means let the knowledge come from all sources. That I think is important for soldiers of the future. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for a patient hearing, and congratulations to a very well conducted course. Thank you.